Hi, welcome to the webinar, How to Triple Your QSR's Online Revenue. So I'm the VP Growth at S4D, and with S4D we work together with quick service restaurant chains to improve their business and in the end to become more profitable with getting more orders on one hand and work more efficient on the other hand. And I'm responsible for marketing, sales, and partnerships. So David, to you, can you maybe introduce yourself? I think you have like 20 years of experience in digital marketing.
Well, that's true. I've been in the digital marketing domain for indeed over 20 years. I'm one of the owners of the Level Up group, which is a digital marketing group, which consists of different labels, which all have their own like specialty. So one of them, for example, is focusing on generating traffic to websites, and the other one is focusing on conversion optimization. And before that, I worked at a bank, and I was head of online at a bank, but that was a pretty long time ago. Yeah.
So restaurants and banks very different.
Yeah, definitely.
But in the end, I think with just generating traffic and having websites that convert, maybe that in bottom line it is the same game or not?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. So if you look at how we approach digital marketing, and we were having a conversation about digital marketing versus like regular marketing, but I think it also applies to regular marketing. If you look at marketing by itself, we base our approach towards clients based on a book by my colleague Daniel, which contains a framework in which we identify different drivers for growth.
Yes, we're going to go deeper into that.
Okay.
So you're also working together as the marketing partner of one of our partners, like New York Pizza. Can you maybe explain a bit about that?
Yeah, that's I think it's that's interesting to mention. Of course, New York Pizza is a long-time customer of ours, I know the owner, the founder, Philippe, very well, because we met like 10-15 years ago, and we started doing marketing for New York Pizza, indeed, digital marketing. And we developed a close relationship over the years. And I also remember that we had a conversation like 10 years ago where Philippe asked me, okay, David, we've been working together now for some time, and he asked me, so what is our biggest flaw? What's our biggest opportunity to improve? And then I thought for a while, and I said, well, it's the speed of change that is lacking currently, because back then we were already doing quite a bit of digital marketing, but it was mainly focused on awareness and traffic.
Yeah.
So how can you make sure that customers know that you are there for New Pizza, and how do you make sure that they come to your store to order pizza? But what was one of the hard parts was that their current platform, their website, was a monolithic piece of code, which was very hard to change. So whenever we saw something, whenever we got a complaint of one of New Pizza's customers about the website not performing the way it should, then we wanted to propose a change to the website to make it like a better flow for consumers. But then it took quite a long time to make that change. And also, bigger ideas took a while to get lift off. For example, retention programs or loyalty programs was very hard to do. And so that's what I said to Philippe, your speed of change is lacking, and that will, I think, slow down your growth in the future the most. And well, that's, I think, at that time we decided indeed to invest in a new platform, which was then built accordingly, and it also provided, in a way, the inspiration for a solution for delivery, because all the things we learned there, the architecture that we put in place, and the speed of business change it now supports, actually became, I think, inspiration to start a new company as well in the form of S4D.
Yeah, so solution for delivery, we did a rebranding this year, so now it's S4D. So just also to be very transparent, you're also you have a role within S4D.
Yes, I do.
But more in a distance, right? It's not like daily. But maybe you can explain a bit, what is that? So just to be transparent to people also.
Well, my role, I'm part of the board of advisors, as you would say. So I check in on a regular basis, and am more of a independent outsider who looks at the business decisions, and gives advice to the shareholders and to the board on how to proceed with more strategic decisions.
Nice.
Yeah.
And maybe you touched up on it quickly, but maybe one step back.
Yeah.
You have the different labels behind Level Up Group.
Yes.
Maybe you want to say like, want to mention them, the names, or because I saw you won some prizes with one of the labels and your pizza. Maybe you want to add something to
that. No, I think maybe I could tell you a little bit more about that, because if you look at the labels within our group, we've currently got Net Profiler, who's providing digital marketing services to a New Pizza. But there's also another label within the group called Click Value, provides services, and another label C2B, who also provides services. But they all have got their own specialties, and so together they bring the most value to a New Pizza.
Awesome. Yeah. So good to have this introduction. So let's look at what we will discuss today. So first we will discuss like what is digital marketing, and why is digital marketing important for the QSR chains?
Mm-hmm.
And then last, how to implement digital marketing successfully and measure success. And then please drop also your questions in the Q&A so we can answer them all. Happy to do that. And that's how we will finish up. So then going to there, what is digital marketing? What is digital marketing in your opinion? And I sometimes see e-commerce, digital marketing. Can you explain what you think it is?
Yeah, I personally don't like the term digital marketing very much anymore. It used to be, I think, a good way to distinguish like offline marketing from online marketing. And back in the days when not much was digital, but everything was analog, you would do outdoor advertising, for example, or advertising in magazines. Then of course digital marketing came to the stage. So yeah, I think digital marketing as a term is vanishing already. It's all merging towards just marketing, and marketing is about building relationships with your customers. And if you want to build a relationship, you need to be there where your customer is, right? So if your customer spends time online, which most of us do nowadays, then you should do, I think, as a company, digital marketing to build this relationship with your customer.
Okay, clear. And then e-commerce for you is like almost the equivalent, right?
Yeah, it's just a digital way of doing business. Yeah, indeed.
And from my experience, like you work in different industries, and I see that in the restaurant industry there is still a lot to embrace and learn, because for example, not all brands have like an own ordering channel, or not all brands that I speak with or that meet at expos have an online marketing budget. Maybe they work with influencers, but they don't have a dedicated budget, for example, on Google ads or Facebook ads or Instagram ads. What is your view on that? You were a bit surprised when I shared it.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised, but I'm a bit biased as well, of course, because I've only been working in the digital domain, of course. I think it could be a good choice. Let me begin with that. I don't think it's mandatory to do everything digital and digital only. But yeah, I do think most companies miss out on a lot when they are not at least making a conscious decision about whether or not to employ digital marketing.
Yeah.
So as long as it's a conscious decision and you've made your business case and you looked at the ROI, you talk with some knowledgeable people, and you decide, well, I'm not going to have my own website because somehow that raises my brand or it fits within my overall strategy. That's of course that's fine. But if you haven't thought about digital marketing in all of the steps of your consumer journey, and you're not doing something, but you're not aware that you're not doing it, or you don't know what the benefits could be, well, then I think you're leaving a lot of money on the table, I would say.
Okay, so you think, I can also think, imagine I'm the CEO of like the best food in that area, in that country. I'm not thinking about digital marketing. Maybe my passion is a bit more on having the best food and the most tasty food, right? So that's also something to...
Yeah, but I think every good business starts with a great product.
True.
That's the core, and it's the essence of every company. But in the end, people should know about your great product, right?
Exactly.
You need to go out there and tell people about it, although you might not feel like it, or you might not be that kind of person, but you need to go out there and tell people, okay, come and see what I've got for you. And the same applies to the quick service restaurants, of course. People need to know about you.
Perfect. So let's you touched upon it, the e-commerce drivers.
Yeah.
So let's maybe go over them. What are the e-commerce drivers in your opinion? Maybe we can start with summary and then maybe zoom in a bit on each.
Yeah, sure. So well, we discern like 6 drivers of e-commerce or marketing, and they're all client related. So first of all, your clients or customers need to be aware of you. So we're talking about product.
Yeah.
You can make a great pizza or make a great smoothie or whatever, but people should know about it, and they should be aware of you being a brand that's delivering that kind of products. Okay, so you've got awareness, and I think a lot of companies know this and already are doing this, and it's also more or less the traditional domain of more offline marketing, I would say. But next to that, you also need, of course, traffic.
Yeah.
So people need to decide, okay, if they feel like having a pizza or a coffee or a smoothie or whatever, that they decide to go to your store instead of to somebody else's store. And so traffic, as we call it in the digital marketing, is a second factor. So awareness, traffic, people coming to your store. Well, in your store, the journey is not over yet because they, of course, need to buy something. So what we're focusing quite a lot is on 2 specific e-commerce drivers, and that's conversions. So how many people do you have in the store? You can have like 100 people in your store, but of course you want them all to buy your product instead of like only 2 of them.
Yeah, and your store is also your online store, right?
And that's also your online store. Yeah, that's pretty much the same model indeed. Well, we can talk about the advantages of doing this online, but let's do the summary first, and just interrupt me if I'm
for sure
telling too much, because so conversion, average order value. So if people don't only order a pizza but also order a Coke, or buy 2 coffees or
an extra ice cream,
or
like
extra ice cream,
right?
Yeah, definitely. And well, then actually the first transaction has taken place, right? So people are aware, they come to your store, they buy something, and then that's the start of a relationship actually. But after that, of course, and especially in the QSR industry, it's adamant that people make repeat orders. So
repeat orders, you could also call that retention more?
That's what we call retention, the retention driver indeed. So people who are flabbergasted by the great product, the great smoothie they had or pizza, and they had a great experience during their order, etc., and they decide to come back. So how can you make sure that this first transaction is not the only transaction in your relationship, but builds up and creates a regular order frequency? And then the last e-commerce driver we discern is virality, and that's maybe a bit more digital marketing oriented, because that's all about your clients not only ordering for themselves but also being ambassadors. So I'll go to you and say, hey Dan, do you know that I've got like great pizza over there? I just had them yesterday evening. So it's about ambassadorship and about spreading the word. You could capture that with, for example, NPS as well, so the Net Promoter Score. But those are the 6 main drivers we discern, and I think every marketing strategy should be based on a very clear plan in regard to all of those 6 drivers.
Okay, so for me it's clear what is on digital marketing, and then actually to make it a bit more practical, and you already touched upon it, like why should you imagine I'm leading a chain with, let's say, 50 locations. I have really good food. I do already some offline marketing, have banners in the streets. And then I think, like you said, to have that conscious decision, I think we need to do some with online marketing, right? That's how it starts. And then actually, so why should you invest in your own digital / online marketing as a QSR brand? You touched upon it a bit, because you're leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
But can you explain that a bit more?
Well, as I said before, I think you should be where your customer is at. So, everybody knows that, I've got 3 daughters as well, and they spend quite a lot of time on their phone. And they don't spend that much time, wandering around the town, or at least a big part of the time they spend on their phone. So at first I think you should just be there where your customer is. So That's why you do digital advertising. That's why you have a great app or a great e-commerce platform. That's why you have a very good loyalty program installed. So just, be where your customer is. Also, I think if you look at digital marketing, a huge advantage of doing digital marketing is that I think that you learn much faster, because there's much more data available in the digital domain than in the offline domain. So you can basically measure everything. You can measure which products they've looked at on your website. You can, of course, see what they ordered, but you get a lot of behavioral data that is very hard to collect in the analog offline world.
Yeah, let's say you have a radio commercial or TV commercial. You don't know what happens after that people listen to it, right?
It's really hard. So there are best guesses and there's projections, but in the digital domain, you can come much closer to the truth. So for example, we do a lot of what we call A/B testing on websites. And I don't know whether people are familiar with A/B testing, but it's a pretty simple concept. What we do is that we look at a website and we ask visitors to that website, okay, well, what is your experience when you ordered, for example, a pizza? And they say, well, I managed to place the order, but what I find really confusing is how to add toppings to my pizza. And so then we do a bit of investigation. So, oh, this is interesting, because if this person says he's got an issue with changing his toppings, there's probably 100 more, or maybe 1,000 more, or maybe even 10,000 more. So we take this and then we come up with an alternative version of the adding toppings functionality on the website.
Yeah, okay.
And well, what we could do, of course, is design that and say, okay, well, we've come up with an alternative design, and then we implement it, and now the new website is live, and this should work better, right? And this is the way the old world, I think, works. But that's not the way we work. So we say, okay, well, we came up with a solution, what we think is a solution. And we
solution or an idea?
No, a possible solution.
Yeah.
But it's only a solution indeed when it's been validated.
Yeah.
So you could call it an idea as well, indeed. So we come up with this idea or solution to this customer problem. And what we then do is that we take the old website and we keep it live. So the old version of topping selection, for example. But we also built this new version. And then we say, okay, 50% of the people see the old version, 50% of the people see the new version. And you can actually afterwards determine whether the new version is actually doing a better job. And this is something that's basically not possible in the offline world. So it provides a big learning opportunity.
And keeping that, iterating on that, like keeping this improving, will lead to, I'm assuming, like a higher order average value, but also for maybe one step back, average order value. What is that? What does that mean?
Average order value.
Yeah, we know it, but maybe not everybody knows.
Oh yeah, but it's just your basket size. So, and it's determined, of course, by the products you buy as a consumer. So you can come up with a whole lot of strategies to incentivize people to add stuff to their basket. Yeah. Right. So people might not even know, because you were mentioning ice creams just a couple of minutes ago. Yeah. Well, people might not know that near pizza or is selling ice creams, for example. So maybe when people check out on your website, you should show that there's also desserts, right? And that could be a very good way of increasing the basket size and therefore the average order value of the website.
Okay. So the average order value is the amount of money they spend in each order.
That's a better way to put it.
Yeah, and a word that we also discuss a lot within As4D, but I also think on your side is like a time to value, ticket to value.
Yeah.
What is that exactly?
Well, it ties in a bit to the experimentation cycle we talked about just now. So I think in the digital domain, it's much easier to experiment. And it's easier to show or to demonstrate that the changes you make, the investments you do, pay off. Yeah. And so the time to value, or the time between changing something and seeing this change, creating a positive effect on the bottom line, so generating money, is much shorter in the digital domain.
Okay, clear. And then, so if you see this, there is like a feedback loop in this process, right? Like, can you maybe explain this, because not everybody is really familiar with that? Because you say, okay, we do an A/B test, we have then the old version and the new version, then you come to the conclusion this works better. But what is that feedback loop, and is it ever stopping that feedback loop and improvement?
No, it never stops. No, and no, it never stops, because consumers change, right? So sometimes I also hear stories like, okay, well, we've optimized our website, or we've optimized our loyalty program, and now it's done, right? And it's a 10 out of 10, and so we can sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. But yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, because consumers change. So your competitors are making changes, they're innovating. So that means also that their expectations of consumers of your website are also changing. And if you're not providing this additional value that your competitors are providing, well, then the preference of the consumer is going to lower a little bit. So you should always be in touch with your consumers. And I think, especially in the digital domain, that's so much easier. There are tools out there that cost you like $50 a month, and they'll enable you to get into a conversation with your consumers right away. So, it's a very cheap way to gather customer and consumer feedback. Of course, you can do this in the store as well. If you've got a good store, then you reach out to people, you ask them for feedback, etc. But I think in the online world, it's almost even easier, and at least to capture this data and to see trends within the data.
So maybe taking one step back, right? A lot of people think that marketing stops when people are in your shop or in your online shop. But actually, that's not true, what I'm hearing.
No, I definitely think that's not true. And well, if you go back to the title of this webinar, then how to double or triple or quadruple your sales. But I think the only way to do this is to spend time on each of those 6 e-commerce drivers we just discussed or just mentioned. And what you very often see is that there's a lot of focus on the first 2. So there's a lot of focus on awareness. I should be out there. People should know me. Okay, of course, really important. And I should get people in my store. And then indeed, a lot of entrepreneurs think, okay, that's it. Well, they're in my store, done deal. But I think that's only half of the story, or not even half of the story. And the bad thing about this, about only focusing on these first 2 drivers, is that you're a bit of what we call in sort of a red ocean. So there's a lot of other companies also trying to be out there and creating awareness and trying to draw that same consumer into their store. So there's a lot of competition going on there. So I think everybody who's now advertising on for example, on Google AdWords, as we call it, so the advertisement next to the search results, or is advertising on Facebook, knows that it's really, really expensive. 20 years ago, and now I sound like an old man, but 20 years ago, you could buy an ad and a click, as we call it, a click on an ad for 10 cents. Well, those days are long over. And for example, you pay 50 cents or €1 or $1 to get somebody to your store. That has become a totally different play field. And I think that you should spend more money and more time on the other drivers in this customer journey, because
they already ordered with you once, so they have you as a preferred brand to order from, right?
Invest in loyalty, invest in them being your ambassador, invest a lot in conversion rates. So just imagine that. So sometimes, for example, in your advertising campaign, you don't want to pay more than, for example, $1 per click. Let's assume that that's the maximum you can pay to keep a positive ROI. But the factor that influences this greatly is the conversion rate of your shop, whether it's an offline shop or an online shop. But just take the online shop as an example. So if out of every 100 customers in your store or visitors in your store, only one of them buys, but just imagine what would happen if you would improve your website or improve your store, that 2 out of 100 people would buy your product. Then all of a sudden, you'll be able to spend $2 in your advertising campaign, whereas your limit previously was $1 because there was only one person buying something, which generated enough money to spend this dollar up front.
Yeah.
But if your conversion rate doubles, if you get 2 out of 100 people to buy something with you, you can also spend twice as much at the beginning of the funnel.
And then even if you think about these drivers, if they had the first time order, to get them then the second time to buy is of course easier than the initial buy because you have their data, you have the information, you know their preference, so you can get them back via, for example, what I can imagine also from my experience, like with push notifications, emails, maybe even combining that offline campaign with sending them a postcard. So when they didn't order for 6 months, these are all the tactics that can come into play, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's if you're doing good marketing, you're looking at customer lifetime value.
Yeah. Okay.
And not at that initial transaction. That's something I also see pretty often, that customer lifetime value is a bit underrated.
But imagine you're maybe one step back, because a lot of brands, and that's also what I see, let's say almost every restaurant chain is at least available on one of the delivery platforms. I'm talking Uber Eats, Thuisbezorgd, Takeaway, Lieferando, or Deliveroo, right?
Yeah.
So they say, we have a lot of online orders, but from my experience, like that online order, and you pay a commission of, you have not all the data available. So imagine you're a brand with 100 stores that is active and sees that, I don't know, 30% of the revenue comes from the platforms.
Yeah.
And they would come to you and say, hey, I also want to have these orders on my own website and with campaigns. What kind of advice would you give them to get started? Maybe that's interesting.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that you're mentioning the meal delivery platforms, because I think they're great margin killers. Right, I think it's a very sensible idea to be there, because they've got great market power and they're not going to go away. And they're a great way, I think, to enable you as an entrepreneur or as a brand to start a relationship with a client. So actually, those platforms bring in a new client for the first time. But I think as soon as this first-time customer is dealing with you as an organization and buying your product, you should take over that relationship as much as you can.
So then you view the platform as almost like an ad on Google.
You see the platform almost as an ad on Google?
Oh, maybe I want to phrase it different. So they do the first time order with you, right? And then you need to use these other e-commerce drivers to get them.
Yeah, get them in your own ecosystem.
Yeah.
So how can you persuade a consumer who found your brand via a meal delivery platform or whatever you call them, a marketplace? How can you persuade them to become a direct customer? Because margins are way better if they become your direct customer than them keeping ordering via this meal platform. And what helps greatly, of course, in that regard is that you have to have a proposition. So what would be the reason for a consumer to start ordering at your website? So it may be a wish, but there's need to be some kind of value in there for this consumer to. And so this is also something I think we did quite successfully with New Pizza, and it's one of the things I'm pretty proud of. That if you look at the market share in your sales, those meal delivery platforms initially with New Pizza had a huge market share, but over the years by setting up a loyalty program and by persuading those customers to come back directly to us, we've managed to turn it around.
Yeah.
So I can't share any specific figures, of course, but it's been greatly reduced, this dependency on those marketplaces.
Yeah, and that leads, of course, to much more profitability on each order, and that's the key, right?
Of course, and because that will enable you to spend a bit more, maybe on your advertising, and to get more customers in. So there's a flying wheel there, or snowball effect. If you unlock the potential of all of those marketing drivers.
Okay. So imagine you want to get more, you want to start your own website app. So you say, hey, you need to have a good proposition. I'm hearing also you need to set up then to get people in your online store. So that is invest in traffic, right?
Yes.
But there are different ways in invest in traffic, right? You can work, for example, with influencers. That's something I hear a lot in the business.
Yeah.
But what is for you the difference between an ad with an influencer versus, for example, a paid ad on Instagram? What is the difference maybe in data or in measurement?
No, to be honest, I don't make that much of a distinction between those kind of different marketing tactics. So there's now it's influencers. It will be something new in 2 years' time, and it was something different 3 years ago. It's just a marketing tactic, and what we generally do, and I would advise everybody to do this way, is just test, learn, scale. And that's how we approach everything. So if there's influencers, and let's say that they're only starting to come up right now, and it's a new phenomenon, then we say, okay, well, they're called influencers. Let's give it a try. And that's the nice thing about the digital domain. You can really measure the impact of applying this marketing tactic. So I would say, go ahead.
But how would you practically do this for us to understand, to measure? Because I also have experience with this. For example, in Google Ads, you can see I spend this amount of money, and that's the money I'm getting there with voice.
But it's more the practicalities and the technicalities. I think it's really, really straightforward to measure the impact of having an influencer promoting your product. So usually they're within their post, right? They're linking to your website, and they usually have like a discount or a promotion. So there's an extra incentive to go to your restaurant chain in order to make it likelier to
so you can identify the traffic that comes from there and buys.
Yeah, and then in your web analytics software, as we call it, that runs on your website, you can just see, okay, well, influencer A has sent me 1,000 people via his website or his YouTube channel or whatever to my website, and you can just measure that. That's very easy.
That's common sense for you, because you're daily with this, but people who are making great food are not always focused.
No. It's good that you're addressing this because.
But then maybe let's take that example, right? We have someone Twitch person,
game streamer
pushes, let's say, 1,000 people to your website, but we see that of these 1,000 people, nobody buys. What is then? How would you value that campaign then?
Well, you could also tie into a value to awareness. So at least those people are aware they've been in your shop for once. But of course, that I would assign a lower value to those kind of people than, of course, real orders. There's also quite a few secondary effects, right? So some people might see your brand and this influencer is raving about the quality of your pizza, for example, but they're not interested today. So maybe they'll come tomorrow or the day after. So also an interesting metric to look at is, for example, your direct traffic. What we usually see with a good influencer is that there's a spike in traffic. But not directly only via the YouTube channel, where you can measure a click on this link, where we can really measure it. But sometimes people just open up a new tab in the browser or whatever, and they don't go to your website directly. But of course, these people are motivated by somebody, and they've then been motivated by this influencer.
Be hungry at that moment, right?
Well, that's another interesting and a very important topic, which I like very much about digital marketing, is indeed the hungry hours. So what we've experimented so much, and you see that advertising during the hungry hours. So when people feel like, okay, what am I going to have for dinner or for lunch?
Holland, 6 o'clock?
Yeah, a little bit before that, 4, 5-ish, and then towards 6 o'clock. And then what you see is when you advertise at that point in time, it's much more likely to succeed, which makes total sense, of course.
Yes.
But if you make the comparison again, as we did in the beginning with offline marketing, if you do outdoor advertising, your ad's going to be there the whole day long, and you're going to pay for it the whole day long. Whether it's 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning. What we do with digital advertising is, we don't advertise that much in the morning or in the early afternoon. We just switch it off, because what we've seen, test, learn, scale, experiment, it doesn't bring in enough money at that time. Of course, some companies work with time orders, and there are QSRs, of course, who provide lunch. Well, that's then you need to adjust the time slots accordingly. But just the possibility to switch on and switch off your advertising campaign saves a lot of money.
Okay. And do you have some experience, for example, with local store marketing? Because you can do some from headquarters on the local level.
Yeah, and that's I think a very interesting topic, and it actually proved to be a hard nut to crack, so to say, because there's usually the headquarter in the QSR chain, and well, they take care of brand awareness and making sure that everybody knows the brand within a certain area, and that's usually going pretty well. The hard part is, I think, the what we call the local store marketing, because then the scale becomes much smaller, right? There's a store, and that if they get like a few hundred orders per week, then it's already a really a good running business. And it's but this business, sometimes they got a little bit different prices, and they got maybe some different products, and so you can't go live locally with a unified
national approach, or
that's not going to work out really well. We've tried that, and we've done that because it's very efficient. Of course, you just copy the national message and you do it on a local level as well, but you see it doesn't work that well because there are local differences. But if you want to have a tailor-made campaign on a local level, it's going to be expensive, right? So, well, the key there, after a lot of iterations, proved to be automation. So we've set up some very good campaigns, I think, where we automate a lot of local campaign generation. So even the banners or the advertisements are being generated by the computer, but we involve the local, the franchisee sometimes, or the local owner. It differs a little bit in the campaign creation process.
Okay.
So they provide input and they make some choices. Oh, I don't want to provide that coupon. I don't want to do that discount, but I do want to do that kind of discount. And I want this message to be much more, get much more priority. And then, the software takes this into account and then creates a tailor-made local store marketing program, which actually showed great results.
And then you have a coupon, and then to recognize the magic of success is that you have a coupon code that can be used only in that store,
for example.
And then S4D comes in with creating that coupon code and seeing it on the checkout and all of that.
Definitely. So there are a lot of smart tricks you can do within a digital domain or within the platform, to measure the effect of your campaigns. So that's why I talked about learning, right? Digital marketing is all about learning and being able. That's why I like this profession quite a lot. There's this feedback loop. So I keep on learning and I keep on optimizing and keep on getting better and making more money actually for customers.
Okay. And maybe I still want to take that step back, right? When you, for example, have a lot of orders via the platforms and not yet on your own website or app. How would you think like a loyalty program comes in and to convince these people to make that move to order next time? Because your website needs to be as good, as pleasant to order as on the website of Thuisbezorgd or Uber Eats.
It should be even better, but
it should be better.
But
that's like the minimum, I think. But it should be better. And then, how can loyalty play a role in getting them from that platform?
Well, I think it's the most basic answer, I think, to the question, why would consumers come to your website directly? So, they're going to this marketplace, this meal delivery platform for a reason. And usually that's convenience, they know how to get there. It's easy to find something you like, and it's easy to pay, for example. So, you need to find a reason for them to make a change in their behavior. Nobody's going to change their behavior for free or for nothing. So this is where the loyalty program comes into place. So if you, for example, say, if you order with us, you get loyalty points, and if you've gathered 100 loyalty points, you get a second smoothie for free, or you can have a free cookie next to your coffee, or whatever. That then of course gives people a reason to visit your website directly instead of going to this meal delivery platform.
Okay. Clear.
But also, where you were referring to, my website should be as easy as the meal delivery platforms. It should definitely be as easy, but it should also provide more options. So what you very often see is that the meal delivery platforms do not enable you, for example, to tailor make your order. Yes, sometimes there's a bit of a clumsy interface where you can say, well, I don't like cheese, for example, so I don't want cheese on my pizza. So you can input that. But on the Neo Pizza website, I can compose my whole pizza by myself, and I can put additional salami on top of it if I would like to. Better, I can even save that order, and when I come back later, I can order exactly the same pizza without cheese, but with double salami. Whereas on Thuisbezorgd, which is a takeaway, which is a big platform in the Netherlands, yeah, it's much harder to do that.
Yeah.
So that's for me a reason to go to the pizza website directly, for example.
Okay. That repeat orders. So yeah, we're I think 45 minutes into this, and we can keep going and going. But I also want to go to the questions. So please drop some questions in the Q&A so we can answer them directly. So yeah, good question. For smaller QSR chains with limited budget regarding cost, effective digital marketing strategies, what would be the effective digital marketing strategies that they can implement to compete with larger chains and more established competitors?
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for that easy and quick win, right?
Yeah, it's a hard question. I understand what the question is, but you know, I think what's usually a bit easier for smaller chains is that there's much more mandate and there's much more autonomy. So I think what smaller chains should do is they should experiment faster and more than big chains, and I think they can do so. Because with big chains, there's more bureaucracy and there's much more time needed to make decisions in regard to marketing initiatives. And I think what distinguishes smaller chains is that they can experiment much faster and find those golden nuggets. And I don't know where they are, so I can't say, okay, it's always ambassadorship. That's what you should focus on. No, that's not the way it works. But I think what works is just that you can experiment much faster and a bit outside of the boundaries of a more established chain.
Yeah.
Smaller chains aren't, for example, as where I see with big chains. So you should be very aware, I think, as a small chain, what your advantages are in comparison to a big chain. And I see that most smaller chains don't see that. But what I, for example, see is that there are much more bureaucracy within bigger chains, which makes them slower. But also I see that there's a much more brand-driven approach. So sometimes you cannot take a marketing initiative in a bigger company because it might clash with brand values or those kind of topics, whereas smaller chains don't care that much about
and they can
set brand value.
They can change the proposition also easier.
Indeed.
Right?
Yeah.
Imagine there's a football World Cup, then you can change maybe your colors and have a more connected.
You know, sometimes you even see where bigger companies and smaller companies don't realize this. When I proposed that we should change, for example, really something simple, the color of a button, because we've seen in an A/B test, as I just mentioned, that it works better and creates additional money, that people still might say, okay, no, we're not going to do that because that color of green, it's not part of our brand identity. So yeah, we're going to stick with black.
Okay, clear. What are some common myths or misconceptions about digital marketing that you have encountered?
Yeah, nice question. Common myths or misconceptions. Yeah, sometimes people think it's cheap, but it's not it's not per se cheap. But I think it does enable you to run smaller experiments in the digital world. So you can run an experiment, see if it works, and then scale up. And that's something, you know, you have to go big or you don't go in the offline world. So you either do a big outdoor campaign or you don't do it. But there's almost no possibility, no leeway to come up with smaller experiments.
Okay.
What's also a misconception is that you can measure everything. And that's really, sometimes is that almost the death of digital marketing, that, you know, we're so much focused on the data and validating and proving that what we've done is making money, that we sometimes forget that in other domains, this relationship is almost never established between what you do and what you get. And then we keep on analyzing and keep on gathering data. And there's always going to be, a gray area where you don't know what the exact consequences are of your actions.
Okay, clear. I don't know how to answer this question, but I will ask it. What is the best digital marketing platform?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what people mean with the digital marketing platform.
I could imagine, for example, on
Yeah.
which channel you need to be active to drive traffic
Yeah,
maybe to your
okay.
website. So
If you talk about the digital marketing platform in terms of traffic, yeah, the answer is going to be a bit the same again, because it differs per QSR. So, you know, we work not only for Near Pizza, but also for a bakery chain in the Netherlands. We also work for Laplace, which is also a different kind of chain. So the real answer is it differs, and you know, you should taste and try out every different traffic generator. So I've seen great results with Google AdWords. So without a doubt, I've seen great results there. I've also seen great results with influencers, as you just mentioned. But I think the real secret is not to focus on traffic only, but to really think about all of those e-commerce drivers. It's much easier to gain 10% in traffic, to gain 10% in conversion, gain 10% in order value, than to gain 30% in traffic.
Yeah.
And a lot of people forget that. And the nice thing about gaining 10% in every driver is there's also a compound effect, because 10 times 10 times 10% is not 30%, it's a bit north of the 30%.
Okay.
So I think if I can give an advice, please look at all of those drivers, because I see a lot of companies also that are not paying attention to all of the drivers.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is a bit more that full customer journey from beginning to end. Yeah, how can you strike balance between data-driven decision making and maintaining a human touch in digital marketing efforts to create genuine customer connections?
Yeah, I think if you're talking about building relationships, everything is about being personal and having a human touch. So the only part where data comes into play is afterwards. If you want to evaluate, you know, our conversation, for example, then we could look at the data afterwards. So, you know, I'm trying to establish a connection with you and to have like a good and pleasant conversation. And maybe next time I'm going to come up with a new a new way of having this conversation. Maybe we should prepare the questions differently so we've got a nicer conversation. So you're always focusing on the human touch. I don't think there's any other way, but the way you evaluate that is always with data. So, you know, nowadays we can ask an AI to make an analysis of our conversation, and then the AI is going to tell us, okay, you know, looking at the data, you've had eye contact 1,234 times, which is slightly above average. So I would rate your conversation as a good conversation. So that's, I think, what's the balance. Data does not, ideas are always about connections and the human touch. Data is only there to validate, to evaluate, and to stimulate you to come up with a new idea about this interaction.
Okay, clear. I think we're going slowly to the last questions. Are there any specific trends or strategies in the QSR digital marketing landscape that have become outdated or less effective in recent years? And what should QSR focus on instead? I heard you like saying Facebook and Google became much more expensive.
Yeah, that's the things that came to mind as well, you know. Traffic has become really, really expensive with like the common platforms. So that's this. So you always want to be first when something new pops up. Experiment right away. So that's what we've been talking about, the influencers, for example. Well, influencers weren't there 10 years ago. So when they pop up, TikTok, for example, TikTok is, I think, underutilized, greatly underutilized still. It's a huge platform, but you know, people tend to wait a little bit, and in the beginning they see this new platform and they say, okay, well, there's not that many people yet, so we can hold it off for a while. But TikTok has grown amazingly over the last few years. So I would advise, you know, jump on the bandwagon quickly, do an online or a digital experiment, find out if it works. And in the beginning, those new channels are cheap. right?
Yeah.
And they all become expensive at the end because then everybody knows that there's business there, and they start bidding for the new ads on TikTok or for the new ads on Google. Because I don't know whether everybody knows this, but on Google, it's an online auction. So if I want to show my ads when people search for pizza, I do a bid. I say, okay, I'm willing to pay €1 for it. But if you are willing to pay €2 for that, well, they're going to sell it to you. So the moment that there's a lot of people dealing with this new traffic source, prices go up automatically.
True. So I have one final question that you sometimes hear in digital marketing in general.
Yeah.
They say like, hey, ideally I want to spend €10 and get, I don't know, €40 back. Is that really possible?
Well, sometimes, and for some channels, yes, it is possible. You know, if for example, if you look at conversion optimization, that's not something in the QSR industry, I would say, gets a lot of attention. And ROI, is huge on conversion optimization. It's because it's rather cheap to think about how to improve your website, to set up a small experiment and to see whether it works out and deliver additional revenue in terms of conversion rate or revenue. Because you don't need to spend money on Google or Facebook or whatever. So yes, I think that's very well possible. There are marketing activities that show such great ROIs. I see even bigger ROIs. If you spend €10 on conversion optimization, I'm willing to testify that you're going to make at least €40 out of that.
Okay. So that's actually nice to hear, but that's actually with S4D what we do to keep optimizing that website of the QSR chain, like with new sprints, new ideas, A/B testing. So yeah, I think that's a nice finisher. So going to the last slide. So we're going to be in London actually in about a month. 10 and 11 in October in Excel London, in the Restaurant and Takeaway Innovation Expo / Hospitality Tech Expo. So drop me a message directly down at s4d.eu or come visit us at booth G41. Come and meet us, and we're also going to do, of course, a next webinar later. So that's it. And David, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.